welcome back to Monuments of Life. As usual, we always bring people who will inspire you at the end of the day because we know there are many issues that are happening in our country, happening in our daily lives. So we must keep talking because as we talk, we find the solution of the problems that we are going through. Today, we are privileged to have one of the best guys in this country. Yeah? I know Monuments of Life family, you are eager to know who are we hosting today and what are we going to talk about. So, keep tuned. My brother, welcome to the Monuments of Life.
My name is Rafiki Karisa. Thank you again, Monuments of Life, for having me back.
Today we are talking about the harassments that happen in a workplace. You have heard even the issues in media, all over people's talking. Maybe as HR consultants, maybe you can tell us the kind of harassments that you have umezipata huko nje.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, when it comes to harassment, basically there are four types. Number one, it's emotional harassment. Number two is verbal. Number three is physical. And then number four is, of course, professional. So those are usually the four types of harassments that we find them at work. And all of them impact, of course, negatively to the life of the employee. And of course, there is need for the employee to be aware of this type of harassments and how they can handle them.
Maybe before we go into details, what is harassment for the people who are listening out there? What can be described as harassment? What it is? Yeah?
Okay, I will not draw the definition directly from the dictionary, but basically harassment is something that is done by another person and that makes you uncomfortable. Not uncomfortable in terms of ideology or somebody is performing their duty, but something that is done to you. It's done to you. It makes you uncomfortable. It makes you uneasy. It makes you probably get demotivated, or it may affect actually your emotional life. So those are that is what we can define as a harassment. And of course, I have given the four types of harassment. That is professional. There are people who are professionally frustrated. They try doing whatever is right, but because there is somebody somewhere that is putting frustration across, then they are not able to do anything. But also there is emotional harassment. This is doing things that, of course, there has been a lot of discussion around, extensive discussion around narcissism and narcissistic behavior at workplace. This is now contributed to emotional harassment. And then there is the physical assault, which still exists in some of the companies. And also there is verbal. Yeah, if somebody insults you, you don't feel good. Will you feel good if somebody insults you? No, of course. So those type of harassments exist.
Maybe from that, there is an issue that has been coming up, especially in our country, and men has been complaining about it regarding the dress code. Maybe can it be a type of harassment, especially from, with all due respect, our girls. Sometimes they dress in a way that it is not friendly, yeah? In a kind of harassment. Labda the dress code itself, can it be one type of harassment?
It can be implied harassment, but again, I wouldn't like a situation where somebody is not free to dress the way they're supposed to dress. But also the HR has a mandate to come up with policies. That's why you see most of the most professional organizations adopting a dress code. That is to protect all the people in the organization. But there are organizations that do not have a dress code. I will not term dress code as a source of harassment. Of course, ideology differ, but for sure, we allow people to dress because there are men also who dress in a way that attract the lady. By the end of the day, either ladies or men will be attracted by the other party, and so either side have not been on the recent past dressing, say, so appropriately. But the company can play a key role of ensuring that their dress code policy protects both of them. Yeah.
And on that, our view as a Monuments of Life family, as men, we also need to have self-control. Yeah, it is not your work to look after how people have dressed, so you have to work on that. As a consultant, maybe as you work in your daily activities, do people come to report those cases, or they decide to just to remain with them, just to shut up, and they after tu wananyamaza tu?
It depends with the employee. Most of the time, cases are reported. Okay. In a number of organizations, we've handled quite a number of harassment cases, but there are employees who still keep quiet. And of course, by the end of the day, these are people are usually affected emotionally and even in their career progression. But we usually encourage people to speak out. Okay, but again, speaking out, it usually differs from one organization to another. Okay, there are organizations that create an environment where they speak out. Employees speak out and they are heard. There are organizations where probably employees are not encouraged to speak out. And there are organizations that probably the bosses are involved in the harassment. So what do you do in such a case? So it differs from organization. You had the BBC expose on sexual harassment, and the bosses were involved in the harassment. And so in such a case, then it becomes hard for the employee to speak out and get heard. But for organizations that are progressive, they will always implement policies to safeguard their employee. Because remember, if you protect the employee, of course you're protecting the organization. You need an image by the end of the day. Some of our colleagues can actually help us in following up with these issues. But the most appropriate is to raise them with the supervisor, and then of course raise it with the HR office, because that's where now issues of harassment are taken seriously. Unless the organization have retained somebody who is not willing to protect their employee. So, but when the issue is not internally resolved, there are other legal structures. There are social protection units in the country. In every county, there is a social protection office. Okay. Number two, in every county, there is a labor office that they can go to for these people to get assisted or guided or even fast track some of their cases. But also there are a category of employees who can afford legal proceedings against a company. Then they can use their lawyers to institute. There has been a number of cases that have been done around the issue of harassment, and the court has pronounced itself clear on the on matters harassment. But on the issue of employees who are not able, who cannot afford, the government has put up structures to ensure that it is done. There are social protection officers. Let's say, for example, an employee is raped. If an employee is raped, then they have two officers to report to. They can report it in the labor office, and they can report it in the social protection office. These exist in all the counties in Kenya.
Maybe what about that employee is going through harassment and he's fearing to lose his job? What was take on that?
I think sometimes it's a matter of losing your life or losing your job. Because you can keep the job and lose your dignity. So you need yourself by the end of the day. Okay, so that's why sometimes it's good for you as an employee to empower yourself, so that when there is something like that, you have already empowered yourself. If monuments of life decide today to fire you and you do not have a plan, and then you're likely to keep up the harassment. But I can tell you that the benefits of dealing with the harassment family are better than persevering. Yeah. So the best is for each person to empower themselves financially, and also to ensure that when something like that happens, you deal with it. Sometimes you will be the first person to, in an organization, probably to deal family on the issues of harassment, but it's for the sake of others. Sometimes it's worth it.
But the bottom line is that we are supposed to report when that issue comes up, so we can deal with these harassment.
Yeah, sure. I've said that organizations that have good HR practice, they have good structures to protect their employees. And so there are some organizations that are doing very well. When cases are reported, they are dealt with family, and the employee is protected. But there are organizations that they don't have a good structure, so the employee can sort for external protection. But again, I also need you to understand one thing, that some of the harassment cases are criminal, like rape. If somebody rape you or attempts to rape, that's a criminal case. So you can actually pursue it to court of law and either get the other person jailed or get compensation. Yeah.